Check 1, 2. Hello, hello. This is Just Human episode 348, and I just talked for 20 minutes before I realized that I hadn't hit the record button. So this is take 2 at this episode. Off to a super pro start. Today is Comey Docket Watch Day for motions to disqualify Lindsay Halligan, which is going to have to be filed in a different district in front of a different judge, but a notice should go on the docket in Virginia. And we're watching for his motion to dismiss for selective and vindictive prosecution. And while we wait for that, it's due by 5 p.m. today. While we wait for that to be filed so I can go over that with you, I have an assortment of other news topics that we're going to go through. There's a short Comey update because a few things have happened on the docket since we were last there. There's some stuff having to do with Bolton. There's a couple new cases I want to look at, including one that has to do with Antifa, which could be a landmark case. And there's a new superseding indictment in the Smartmatic bribery money laundering case, which adds Smartmatic, the company, as a defendant and seeks forfeiture. Tens of millions of dollars. It's kind of huge. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through all this other news while we wait for the Comey docket to get these big filings, which are due today by 5. And what's probably going to happen is I'm going to go through all these topics here for episode 348, and that'll just be episode 348. And then when the filing for selective and vindictive prosecution hits Comey's docket, I'll do another episode and put that in episode 349. That's my plan. Of course, we'll see whether or not that plan survives survives implementation, but let's go. Hope you guys had a good weekend. I had a good weekend, enjoyed Formula One, enjoyed family time, celebrated wedding anniversary, 15 years. And yeah, it was really, really good. And I took a good break from social media, tried not to engage with it. And then about halfway through Sunday, started hitting F5 on the Comey docket every 30 minutes or so. And I was rewarded with some interesting filings and in some other cases. All right. If you like what I do here, please click on my link tree. It's going to be in the description of the show. It's also in my profile, wherever you're watching or listening to this. And on my link tree, you can find all the places to follow me, all the places to watch these episodes, all the places to listen to these episodes, and all the ways to support the show. If you want to make a purchase for yourself, you can use my affiliate links, Benson Honey Farms, bootleg products, or Manly Cans. Buy something for yourself or for a family member or a friend, and out of your purchase, they'll kick a few dollars my way. So you get something, I get something, you support the show, and you support great businesses. If you want to buy me a cup of coffee, Ko-Fi.com is the place to go, or you can go to Venmo and just send me a couple bucks. JustHuman.substack.com is the core of my support. So if you want to be one of those people who is just Human super fan and loves these documents and loves what I do here, a subscription over there, a paid subscription for $7 a month. You buy me a cup of coffee basically, and you contribute a couple dollars to me buying court documents. Some of these I have to pay for. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys. You guys, like I said, you're the core of my support, and I can't thank you enough. I'm having so much fun lately with these episodes, and I hope you are too. Over on Rumble, I have some playlists for all the different court cases that we follow and different reports and subjects. And I appreciate everybody liking and commenting over there. And I would love to see that kind of engagement on my YouTube page, which I've recently gotten back. I've gained a few hundred subscribers over there. Would love to gain some more. And I would love it if you liked and commented on my videos on YouTube. YouTube is a huge space to be in. It's kind of like being a very small product in a giant, like the world's largest Sam's Club. And you have like one spot on one shelf. It's really tiny. Nobody's going to notice you really. And what you want to do is get into the algorithm. You want to get in a display near the cash register or something. And the way that happens in the algorithm on YouTube is by people actually liking and commenting on your videos. It's like every time you do that, you're giving me like a coupon chance in the algorithm drawing to get recommended to someone on YouTube. That's kind of the analogy that I think works best with it. It's a chance. So thank you to everybody who has followed me over there and liked and commented. And I would love to see some of you guys do more of that. And those of you who watch on Rumble who have had difficulty with Rumble working with your TV, I suggest using YouTube. I never have issues with YouTube in my TVs at home. On X is where I do my threads, and I've been threading more and more over there. And we're going to visit some of my threads today, including ones on the Smartmatic and the other cases that I mentioned. All right, first topic. Funding of U.S. courts was exhausted last Friday due to the government shutdown. Now, courts are going to stay open, but furlough notices are going out to basically everyone they can lay off. They're still going to be able to pay jurors. They're still going to be able to pay judges. They're still going to pay prosecutors and all those things. But anybody who can be laid off is. And what this is going to mean is like back office staff and people who handle a lot of filings are going to be laid off. And that's going to mean slowdown in documents hitting the actual docket. And there was already a slowdown because PACER, the electronic filing system, one, it sucks. It's ancient. It was meant, it would be something great in 1995. In 2025, it is ancient and clunky and it sucks. And it was hacked this summer, as you guys might remember. And so courts are already being slow to put things on PACER, and they're keeping a lot of things off of it because they're worried about it getting hacked. So anything that's sealed, they're keeping that off and just putting like a notice that something was filed sealed, or they don't do anything at all. And we'll look at a docket here in a minute that is just wrecked by this type of behavior, which is understandable. I understand why they're doing it, but it sucks for us, the public, who has a right to access documents filed in court. And it's important that we are able to access those things because it's how the public can get insight into the judiciary and see whether or not judiciary is functioning as we wish it to. And of course, most people are going to have a complaint. That they'll always will. But it's better that we have the oversight to then have something to complain about than us have no oversight at all and no access. And my number one worry here, I am biased, and I'm sure you guys are biased too because we want these court documents, and in the past we've learned so much from them. My worry is that a delay in documents, say, hitting the Comey docket or Bolton or some of these others, is going to mean that the only way we know what happened in the courtroom is from the interviews with the defense counsel and the prosecution, when and if they give interviews. And of course, they're going to characterize what happened in the courtroom from their angle. It's an adversarial setting, so they're going to characterize it to come across one way that benefits their client, right? So it's worth listening to them, but you have to keep in mind that they're biased, as their job. They should be biased. It's not something to hold against them, but biased nonetheless. And it's going to be limited to court reporters or journalists who are actually there in the courtroom and show up and either talk to people or witness what happens in the courtroom, and they're reporting, which we know is also biased. And so the narratives about what happens in, say, the Comey case or Bolton or anything else are going to be that much more difficult to parse and to pick apart because we won't have the documents to go with them. And it's been to our benefit on this show. We've benefited greatly from being able to read like Hunter Biden documents and in the Trump cases, being able to read the documents in those. And we've been able to extract from those a better understanding than we otherwise would have had if we only relied on media reports. And over the past few years doing this show, we've had many instances where the reporting on the left and the reporting on the right left certain things out and reported things a bit dubiously or speciously, or they characterized things in a way that once we got our hands on the documents, we realized wasn't really a fair way to characterize them. And so it's been to our benefit in this audience to be able to access those documents and compare them to media reporting. And my worry about this is that that's going to become that much more difficult, or at least delayed. And in the world we're in the info war, which I've talked about so often, things happen rapidly online, and narratives and memes get rapidly disseminated, and people absorb them and commit them as truth in their mind, but they buy into them. And it's so much more difficult to convince someone they're wrong, or they've got a misimpression, or somehow they've been duped. It's so much more difficult to convince them of that and give them more accurate information. So much more difficult. People don't like to hear not just that they were wrong, but that they were fooled. And not having access to these documents pretty quickly just creates an opportunity for them to be exploited in that way. That's my number one worry. Hopefully I don't need to worry about it, but we'll see. Now I have another case to talk about. Eric Garland, great follow on X, found this article about Ashley Tellis. It's a guy. In this sense, Ashley's a name that is rarely used for a man, but it sometimes is. And Ashley Tellis is a longtime U.S. State Department employee who was an India expert, particularly in the area of nuclear weapons. And he's been charged under the Espionage Act because he was sharing classified information with China. So I went and looked at this case, and it was kind of funny. This guy, why is the affidavit not available? I was able to access it the other day and read it. I wonder what if they made a change there. Okay, so I was able to here. I'm gonna get it because I want to show you guys this. Okay, it's still there. It's not on Court Listener, but it is on Pacer. This is Pacer. Doesn't it look like 1995? Okay. So this guy Tellis, the FBI's been looking at him since at least 2023, I think. And he would go into a skiff. He would have to badge into the building and get scanned to go in the building. He would be on camera going in and out of the building. He would have to badge in and he would be on camera going into a skiff. And in the skiff, he would then have to use a computer, a terminal, where he had to ID himself into that terminal. And everything he did on that terminal was tracked. So everything this guy has been doing is tracked. He lives in Vienna, Virginia, and he would go in there to the U.S. State Department and he would access DOD files, Department of Defense files, now Department of War. And he had a clearance. He had a top secret and secured compartment and information clearance. He's been working with the State Department for 25 years almost. On September 12th, 2025, he was observed on camera going into a skiff and utilizing the computer in the skiff, which he had to identify himself in that computer, and he printed multiple classified documents for himself. And he hid those documents in red-weld folders, in pockets of them. He also hid them in between sheets of his notepad. Like he had a notepad and he would, like a legal notepad or something, and he put them in between the pages of that. The most recent file he took, or at least the one that's mentioned here, he logged into something called ClassNet, and he got a file, a PDF file, that had to do with DoD assessment, Air Force assessment of adversary fighter aircraft in 2024. Might be Chinese aircraft or Russian. I'm thinking it's Chinese aircraft. And what he's doing is he's stealing our assessments of Chinese aircraft and then giving it to the Chinese so the Chinese know how much we know. The document also referred to U.S. Air Force tactics and techniques and procedures as concerns. I don't know what. I don't know if just generally or if it has to do with us countering those fighter aircraft. It was a top secret. No, it was secret, no foreign government, do not share, like all fully classified document. And it has foreign government information. So it's information about a foreign government. The document was over 1,200 pages in length. He opened a print window, but then canceled it without printing, because what he did was he resaved the document and titled it Econ Reform. You know how when you go into a PDF and you can go to print, and then instead of print, you can print to save? He did that and he renamed it Econ Reform. He then went to a print window and he entered to print out pages 59 through 172. He selected multiple pages. So it would print multiple pages of this on one page, so he could limit how many actual pages he was taking out. He went to go print. He selected a printer located at the building, and he's doing this inside a skiff. And approximately 8:26 p.m., he pressed the print button, but the document did not print. He then attempted to print the document several more times, but it did not appear that the document printed at that time. So 7 minutes later, Telus opened an unclassified document concerning a public speech by a U.S. government official, and he printed that document. At approximately 8:34 p.m., that'd be 8 minutes later, he reopened the document that was titled Econ Reform and tried again to print the 59 through 172 pages, and it did print. And then he printed pages 173 to 285 and pages 286 to 398. At 8:49 p.m., he printed pages 943 to 955 p.m. 59. Every single thing you do on these computers is tracked. And also printers track you. I don't know if you guys know this, but printers have a log where they track everything you print or try to print, all those things. At approximately 8:51 p.m., he then deleted the file that was titled Econ Reform. At 8:52 p.m., he opened the PDF document that was classified, or a different one. And this one was a U.S. Air Force weapons school document that concerned military aircraft capabilities. He scrolled through the document quickly and then printed all 40 pages. He then opened a PDF document that was also classified secret, no foreign intelligence, no foreign, you don't share with any foreigner. The file that he opened was U.S. Air Force weapons school document that concerned military aircraft, and he printed all 40 pages of it. At approximately 9:11 p.m., he logged off. 9:17 p.m., he badged out and went on to C Street carrying a leather briefcase that had all these things in it. All of this is tracked. Now, did you catch what happened here? I think he got busted stealing classified documents because print jobs got stuck in the queue. Because when you look right here, it says that he clicked on the printer selection drop-down menu and selected a printer that was located at the same building, the was it Hoover Street building or whatever. And at approximately 8:26 p.m., he pressed the print button, but the document did not print. Telus attempted to print the document several times. However, it did not appear that the document printed at that time. So I think, see, it didn't say it didn't print. It said it did not print here. But then he tried several more times and it said it did not appear that the document printed at that time. So you know what I think happened? The same thing that's happened to so many of us with printers. It got stuck in the queue. He figured it failed to print and wasn't going to print. He did the other stuff and left. And then after he left, it printed. And somebody came upon it and was like, WTF, what is this doing here? Who printed this? Busted. Or he selected the wrong printer and it printed on some other printer. But I think the classic printer error that we've all suffered got him busted. And I loved Codepont's Office Space meme that he posted here, because I think that's exactly the scenario that was going on. Now, I'm pretty sure that they've been tracking him for a long time, maybe since September 2022, but definitely since at least 2023, because as this document goes on to say, or as the indictment goes on to say, on September 15th, 2020, actually, it's not the indictment, I'm sorry, the affidavit, the probable cause affidavit, goes on to say that on September 15th, 2022, multiple People's Republic of China, PRC government officials, and TELUS had dinner in a restaurant in Virginia. How would they know that? September 15th, 2022, that's 3 years ago. Were they also looking into him there? Did they backtrack in their investigation and found this? I kind of think they were already onto him and they were watching for him to do something. TELUS entered the restaurant with a manila envelope and the PRC officials entered the restaurant with a gift bag. TELUS and the PRC officials sat at the back corner. The meeting lasted approximately 2 hours and TELUS did not appear to have the manila envelope in his possession upon his departure. See, I find it difficult to believe that they would find this guy recently and then be able to go back 3 years on surveillance footage from a restaurant. I don't think any restaurant keeps its surveillance footage or its security cam footage. I don't think any restaurant keeps it for 3 years. Maybe for 1 year. But honestly, I think 3 months, 3 to 6 months at the most, they keep it. So I think that they've been, this guy's been getting surveilled for a long time, or these PRC officials were surveilled at that time and the team that surveilled them wasn't familiar with TELUS. And so they hadn't put things together, right? That makes sense to me, that anybody from China who's here, who's a government official, we're surveilling them the whole time. So I think they were able to put that together. Then they met again in April 11th, 2023. He had dinner with PRC government officials. It doesn't say the same ones. It just says with officials. And during the meal, TELUS and PRC officials, quote, could be occasionally overheard talking about Iranian-Chinese relations and emerging technologies, including artificial intelligence. The fact that it says they could be overheard makes me think that they were being surveilled by undercovers who were sitting close enough to hear them or were using a device that allowed them to hear them. I don't think the restaurant it's going to have camera footage going back 2.5 years. There's another meeting in a restaurant on March 19th, 2024, and another one September 2nd, 2025. And he would exchange these documents that he stole, these classified documents, with these people. And at some point he was getting paid, I'm guessing. Actually, I don't remember. He got gift bags. I don't remember from this if it ever said how much he was paid. There's a gift bag. And U.S.-Pakistan relations were discussed March 19th, 2024. So somebody's listening. A gift bag was given to him September 2nd, 2025. A search warrant was executed at his house on October 11th on his person and his vehicle and his home. And that is the same day he was going to leave the country. So I think that, and they found more classified documents in his house and other areas of his property. So he planned overseas travel right here. He was going to leave that evening and they were going to go to Italy. So the DOJ decided to move before he was out of country, probably fearing that he would leave and not come back. So this right here was the probable cause. I find it hilarious to think about a guy running into that classic printer situation that we all have experienced, and it causes him to get busted stealing classified documents. Okay. Next document. I'm seeing new filings on Comey docket. We'll go through one of them. It's not the big one yet. Okay. First, we're going to go to the Bolton docket, though. Let me check and see. Do I have these lined up the way I want them to be? Yes. Okay. So on the Bolton docket, let me just pull up that docket. This is it. I want this one. And here in a minute, I'm going to get the other one. Yep. Okay. So since we last covered this one, there's been, he's appeared. He actually had to go in and get arraigned like the next day, which tells you something. It's not like Comey and Letitia James where it's like, okay, here in a week or so, show up at the courthouse at this time and you'll be arraigned and all that. It was like, no, come in now. So there was I don't know if there was a warrant issued or if they immediately contacted the court and said, you don't have to issue a warrant. We'll be there tomorrow morning. But different treatment, right? And that's notable. You can make of it what you want, but that's a difference. There was a notice on here, right? There's conditions release, case management, status conference November 21st. Where'd the notice go? Six. Okay, yeah, it's document number 6. There it is. Okay. Notice of related case. If you recall, in the indictment of Bolton, it mentioned the civil case. And I think that might be what this is. My initial 2 guesses were Asif Merchant and Robert Malley. I wrote O'Malley, but I meant Malley. Because I was wondering if they found, we know that the DO investigators found Bolton's emails in the possession of a foreign government. And so I was wondering if maybe Asif Merchant, the assassin, when they got his devices, they found Bolton's emails on them. Or maybe Robert Malley, who's the former State Department official and envoy to Iran, who was caught sharing classified information with Iran. You remember him? This guy right here. And it called it a high-level Iranian spy ring. Got busted in Washington. And Robert Malley got suspended. And this article is from October 1st, 2023. So I haven't forgotten about this guy. And I think it's a possibility that whatever they got off devices that this Iranian spy ring had may have alerted DOJ to Bolton's emails being in the possession of Iran. And perhaps the classified information talked about here, some of it has to do with that. But the most likely candidate for why there's a notice of a related case is the civil case. A third guess is civil case the DOJ brought against Bolton in 2020. And I have that case here. So far, there's no new action on the docket. Nothing's been filed since the stipulation, which ended the case back June 16, 2021. And this case specifically was mentioned in the indictment because both sides agreed to drop the case, but as part of dropping it, Bolton agreed that he would provide to the U.S. all the materials in his possession, custody, or control that had classified information. And obviously, he didn't do that. So he's violated the settlement in this civil case. And I don't know, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what that means for this case. I don't know if that means this case gets reopened and he has to pay penalties or something. We know that there's DOJ is seeking forfeiture in the criminal case of all the benefits that the book brought him, which we know is $1 million+ contract for the book. But then it's whatever was on top of that, whatever he earned from TV appearances, guest appearances, blurbs on other books. I don't know what else. Whatever they can attribute that Bolton gained by committing these crimes. So I don't know if it means that there's going to be a new civil case. I don't know. I would think it doesn't mean that this is reopened, but it could be. It also could be that there's a civil charge of him violating, or another criminal charge of him violating his agreement here, because he signed saying in this stipulation he agreed to turn these things over and didn't. So he broke. This was already for breach of contract that had to do with his agreement with the U.S. government that he would not, that he would protect these classified documents. And that he would then, there was another agreement at the end of this case for him to return them after he had already broke it, the first one. So I'm not sure exactly how that develops. Let me check. Let me check on Pacer with this one and see if we can get it. The last time I tried to get that notice, it was not available. Yeah, it's not. You do not have permission to view this document. See, the fact, I think if this notice had to do with the civil case, right here, the civil case is all public and it's mentioned in the indictment. If this notice had to do with the civil case, I think you would be able to read it. What would be the reason why this would be hidden? The fact that it's not available, it's blocked from the public to see what case this notice is about, makes me think that it's Osif Merchant or it's some other case we don't know about yet. But that makes the Bolton case that much more interesting. I've seen speculation. I'm not even going to mention it. I've seen some real harebrained stuff. People thinking that the Bolton case leads to this or that. I think the case is pretty straightforward, or I was thinking it's pretty straightforward, except for what I've just mentioned. The possible connection to the Iranian spy ring or to Osif Merchant, the assassin who was in the U.S. to kill Bolton or recruit people to kill Bolton and other people in the Trump admin. There was a whole list of people. I thought I listed them in here. Did I? It might have been in a comment that it's Pompeo, it's Mark Milley, it's Esper. There's a number of people who Iran wanted dead, and they sent people to the U.S. to accomplish that. Okay, we can close and get rid of that. That's our Bolton update. So I've checked that off. We'll do Antifa. Actually, we'll do Smartmatic next. Yeah, we'll do Smartmatic next. All right, some of you may remember back in 2023, I think it was, I was covering a case having to do with Smartmatic that was out of the Philippines. I think it was 2023. I'm pretty sure it was like September 2023. Yep, September 2023, right here. In this case, if you remember, they were using code names for the money. Like they were calling the money salsa, I think, and asking if you had some more salsa for my friend or something like that. And it has to do with the Filipino elections and an official there that was in charge of their election commission, which is called COMELEC, COMELEC, the Philippine Election Commission. And Smartmatic wanted to get contracts to provide voting machines for the 2016 Philippine election. And they went about it corruptly through a series of shell companies. They bribed this Philippine official to grant them these contracts, and then they would deliver tens of thousands of voting machines. I mean, it was something like 110,000 voting machines. And I think the total of the contract was around $180 million worth. And then they paid him tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on the side through this network. We have a chart for it right here. And it's been a long time since I looked at it. The case has been, it's been active, but it's also kind of been hamstrung a bit because Bautista, the defendant that the case is named after, and the guy who was in charge of the election commission, who was getting the bribes, he hadn't been extradited. And I think last I knew he was in Canada, and that was over a year ago. And I'm going to look again on the docket, but I don't think he's in U.S. custody. I think he's still in Canada. Anyway, this is the chart for how the awards worked. And they have this one right here. There's 20, it says units, 23,000 units, 70,000 units. Those are voting machines. And those two contracts were worth $199 million. And it was awarded to Company 4, and then they transferred funds to Company 2, who then transferred $56 million to Vendor A. And over here you have the co-conspirators, who are the president of Smartmatic, vice president, other execs. There's also a Philippine metals company who was getting money on the side, but it was a shell company really. And they moved these to other shell companies, X and Y, and it went to Bowman Enterprises, which is each sent $2 million. No, yeah, each sent $1 million. Each one of the shell companies sent $1 million to Bowman. So that's Bautista. So he's the exec, the guy in charge of the election commission. He got $2 million from these two shell companies. And then another chunk of 900,000 went to this Philippine metals company. And then that got transferred to this other shell company. And Bautista transferred it to a family member in the US, who then bought him a $1.2 million home in San Francisco. It's kind of convoluted. I remember when we went over it, it was kind of difficult to track what went where, but it was pretty entertaining to read because of the code names that they gave these officials. But what has happened is that since this case has been advancing in the US, the other defendants have been arraigned, but not Bautista. Ellie Marino, who is a man, he's one of the execs at Smartmatic. That's one of the defendants. And he's been charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering, conspiracy to engage in money laundering, laundering of a monetary instrument, and I'm pretty sure it's the same crimes for Martinez, who's another exec at Smartmatic. I want to say there's one more person besides, there's Vasquez. There he is, Vasquez. Also charged with money laundering and conspiracy and violations of the Foreign Corrupt Private Practices Act. And then here's Bautista, who is the Philippine chairman of their election commission. And what's new for this case is that the actual Smartmatic company has been added as a defendant, and DOJ is seeking forfeiture of they're not just criminally indicted, they're seeking forfeiture of all the money Smartmatic made from this contract, which is hundreds of millions of dollars, and the seizure of any assets, including physical assets, such as those machines. And this case has been handled in the Southern District of Florida. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, now 5 defendants, including the company SGO Corporation Limited is Smartmatic. I want to say, I'm not seeing it there. Yeah, it's specifically 182 million. They corruptly acquired. Let's see. Whoa. Yeah. They corruptly acquired contracts, 1, 2, and 3 contracts to provide machines for the 2016 elections. They were worth approximately $182.3 million. And it was because they bribed the president and they bribed the guy in charge of the election. It said it was for their elections for vice president and other official positions. Smartmatic put the money they made, the revenue they made on these contracts, on their financial statements, which is one of the ways that they're going after them for the money they made right here. Now, I'm not going to mischaracterize this or lead you guys on into thinking this has something to do with Smartmatic altering the outcome of elections. It doesn't. It has to do with public corruption and officials getting bribed to award contracts to a company that is doing the bribing of them. That's straight up what it is. So anybody saying it's more than that, look, they may have a basis for it, but it's not a basis that's found in this case. I want to see, let me look real quick and see if I can find if Bautista has been extradited. I did find before I started recording that one of the people, Vasquez, got permission from the court to go to Taiwan for a deposition over there. So I don't know if there's another case in Taiwan that has to do with Smartmatic, if there's any like a criminal case, I'm not sure, but he had to get a waiver from the court to go to Taiwan and sit for this deposition there. And he agreed not to fight in the event that he got called back or tried to overstay or whatever, he agreed with the court not to fight it. Let me make sure that was actually approved. Let's see. I see the notice. 205. And see, there's a pending extradition. Here we go. That has to do with Bautista being extradited. Okay, so both Vasquez and Martinez were granted permission by the court to travel this year to Taiwan. And then here are the conditions about what they were going to do and who not to speak with and no contact with so-and-so and restricted travel and all of these things. So that happened back in June. They completed that travel. And I don't see anything on the docket about them violating this. So I think that went fine. I also don't see anything about Bautista in this. Let me look over here. Okay, so I spent a few minutes going over the docket, and it looks like neither Bautista nor Marino have been arraigned. So I don't think they're in U.S. custody. I think they've been fighting extradition, and I don't remember Marino being in Canada, but maybe I'm mistaking it. I'm not finding on this docket. It's mentioned somewhere in a filing. and I could be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure one of them was in custody and they had been moved from the Philippines to Canada. But it's been a long time since I was deep in this case. The U.S. did file a motion to proceed, and they informed the court that they were authorized earlier this year in April that they were going to proceed to trial with this case, even though they only had the two defendants, Vasquez and Martinez, were the only ones in the U.S. But now there's a superseding indictment. Let's see if that superseding indictment tells us anything about the whereabouts of two of the defendants. Found it. This is from earlier this year, April 17th, which was around the time where they agreed to go ahead and proceed to trial, which was supposed to be this month, October. Obviously, it's not going to be because there's a superseding indictment. Bautista is currently in Canada contesting extradition to the United States. And I'm guessing he's either successful or he's still in limbo of some sort because he hasn't been arraigned. And neither has Eli Marino, who's a dual citizen of Israel and Venezuela. So Eli Marino might be in Venezuela, in which case we would not get that person. He's one of the Smartmatic execs. If he's in Israel, we might have a chance of getting him. I do not know. I think Bautista was apprehended in the Philippines and then was extradited to Canada first. But I'm not positive about that. But this was back in April, and I haven't seen anything in the docket that said that he was how this went. I'll keep looking though, and maybe on the next episode give you an update on it. There was one more thing I was going to say about this case, and I've just forgotten it. I know what it is. It is this. A criminal summons has been issued for Smartmatic to appear in court. October 30th in Miami, 1:30 p.m. Somebody, a lawyer, representing the company is going to have to appear. Sweet. Okay, let's close that stuff out. And let's get to the Antifa case. Here's the new pre-trial deadlines before. As of now, I don't think they've set a new trial date. Yeah, I don't think they haven't set a new trial date. So this case is going to go on well into next year. Let's check the Comey docket, see if anything new is there. No, but there is something I forgot. I haven't told you guys about it yet. I told you about the notice. No, wait, that was Bolton. No, I don't see it. I'm going to save it and just do one big Comey update episode. Make that episode 349, I think. Okay. So Trump on September 22nd designated Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. And here is his executive order doing so on September 22nd. And it says, fully empower ICE and all federal laws and law enforcement to go after Antifa and to combat them with all the tools they legally are equipped with. And everything here is going to be consistent with applicable law. It declares that because of the aforementioned pattern of political violence, Antifa, I hereby designate Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. All relevant executive departments and agencies shall utilize all applicable authorities to investigate, disrupt, dismantle any and all illegal operations, especially those involving terrorist actions conducted by Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa, or for which Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa provided material support. That's probably the most important thing right here, is the provision of material support. The thing about this that you really need to know, or one of the things, is that designating a group as a domestic terrorist organization is not a thing. It's not a thing. We know what Antifa is. We know it's loosely organized. We know that they get in things like direct action, and we know that the group exists, but it's not like you can go to their headquarters. It's not like you can go to, we know that they're not, it's not like a normal organization. It's more of a collective of a bunch of different organizations, right? It's somewhat amorphous. And this has been why people on the left and news media say Antifa doesn't really exist. It's just an idea. It's a concept. It's a label for political subculture and protest style, according to the New York Times. Okay. That's true, but they also do exist because we literally do see them. And we know what their ideology is, and we see the people who are adherents of that ideology, and we see the actions they engage in, and we suffer the consequences of those actions. So they do exist. They just don't exist in the form of a traditional organization with a hierarchy and a structure that is easily discernible, right? And in Trump's designation, when he designates them as a U.S. domestic terrorist group, the thing is, that is not a thing. Foreign terrorist organizations are a thing, and the law gives those groups due process rights under that designation, and that designation allows U.S. law enforcement and other entities to go after that organization and to seize their assets, freeze their bank accounts, and charge people with providing material support, which is why I highlighted that Trump did that in this right here. This part about providing material support, I think, is the most, or possibly the most important feature or wording in this executive order, because legally that does have a meaning. But there's no equivalent to the foreign terrorist organization label. There's no equivalent of that in the law for domestic terrorism. And that's why this upcoming case is going to be landmark, because it's like it's not a thing. And the media is going crazy, and they're trying to say Trump is like using his imagination, and this is he can't really do this. He can do it. He can declare these things. There's nothing that says he can't. But does it have a legal meaning? And I think it doesn't. There is no legal domestic terrorist organization meaning, but there is such a thing as Trump authorizing and telling these departments under the executive branch, the DOJ, DHS, and others, to investigate people who provide material support to this organization. And we have this new indictment. Well, it's somewhat new. The first version of it was back on July 7th. And there was a sealed complaint filed against 11 individuals? No, 10. 10 individuals. This is out of the Western District of Texas. No, Northern District of Texas. And this had to do with the attack on that ICE facility, right? Well, that was just a complaint. Now we have the indictment. And this is the case I mentioned earlier in this episode, that I was going to show you a case where the docket is all screwed up. This is that one. If you look over here, it skips documents 2, 3, 4, 6 through 32. Suddenly, document 24 appears here below document 33, but it's missing documents 34 through 38. Then we have documents 39 and 40, yay, but no 41, 42, or 46 through 52, or 54, 55, or 57 through 60, or 63 through 76. there's more there's more documents or filings missing from this docket than there are documents on it. That could have to do with the Pacer hack and them not wanting to put sealed filings or anything that has an attachment that's sealed on here. It also could have to do with just the overall dysfunction of Pacer. I don't know. It could be that this judge, the way the judge is running his courtroom, is he doesn't want anything to be on the electronic docket. It doesn't have to be, and everything's being done by paper because of the hack. It also could be because it's all sealed. I don't know, but it's screwed up. The docket is screwed up, and it makes it very difficult to follow what has been going on in this case. But we do know, as of this indictment here, is the outline of what DOJ is charging. It's just a 12-page indictment. On July 4th in North Texas, something called the North Texas Antifa cell, which in this is going to be referred to as an Antifa cell, of at least 11 operatives clad in black and donning masks, some of whom were wearing body armor and carrying firearms, attacked the Prairieland Detention Center in Alvarado, Texas. DHS was using that center to house illegal aliens awaiting deportation. Members of the Antifa cell began shooting fireworks towards the facility and vandalizing vehicles in a guard shed. Alarmed at their presence, DHS correctional officers inside the facility went outside to investigate. DHS personnel called local police for assistance, and within minutes, an officer of the Alvarado Police Department arrived, stepped out of his cruiser and began issuing commands to these black-clad individuals. One Antifa member, who is co-conspirator 1 in the indictment, yelled, "Get to the rifles." Seconds later, co-conspirator 1 opened fire on the officers, striking Alvarado in the neck as the unarmed correctional officers ducked and ran for cover. The wounded officer fell to the ground but was able to return a few shots. Co-conspirator 1 continued to fire additional rounds until his rifle jammed, and then the attackers left the scene. Police arrested most of the Antifa cell shortly after the attack. Many were arrested near the scene, including Zachary Evans, who is one of the defendants here. And then the next day, they arrested Cameron Arnold, who is the namesake of this indictment. Now, this indictment is against these two people, Cameron Arnold and Zachary Evans. The original complaint was against 10 different individuals. So I don't know if all of those people have agreed to testify against these two, or if prosecutors felt they couldn't bring charges against these other people. Not sure. There's too much missing from here for me to know. Now, here's where it starts to define an Antifa cell, and this is what's going to make this case, part of what's going to make it landmark. Antifa is a militant enterprise made up of networks of individuals in small groups, primarily ascribing to a revolutionary anarchist or autonomous Marxist ideology, which explicitly calls for the overthrow of the United States government, law enforcement authorities, and the system of law. Antifa adherents have espoused insurrection and advocated violence to affect the policy and conduct of the U.S. government by intimidation and coercion. Beginning in 2025, Antifa adherents have increasingly targeted agents and facilities related to DHS's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. Others in the Antifa cell looked to co-conspirator 1 as a leader, and co-conspirator 1 also trained Antifa cell members on firearms and close quarters combat. The Antifa cell was heavily armed with over 50 firearms that they purchased in Fort Worth, Grand Prairie, Dallas, and elsewhere. Co-conspirator 1, for example, bought and built numerous AR platform rifles, some of which he distributed to his co-defendants, and at least one of which featured a binary trigger. A binary trigger is a device that allows a firearm to fire more rapidly by causing 2 bullets to fire with each trigger cycle. The Antifa cell used an encrypted messaging app to coordinate with each other. Some of these apps allowed for group chats, and some had auto-delete or delete after a defined time function, which caused communications among the Antifa cell to be permanently deleted. Most Antifa cell members were used monikers in the chat groups to further hide their true identities. They planned in the days prior to July 4th, 2025, and coordinated an attack against the Prairie Land facility using an encrypted messaging app. The goal of the attack was to destroy U.S. government property and commit acts dangerous to human life, intended to influence the policy of the U.S. government and affect government conduct by intimidation and coercion. As one member stated in an encrypted chat, "I'm done with peaceful protest. Blue lives don't matter." Antifa cell members discussed logistics, previous site reconnaissance, and locations of security cameras at the facility. They exchanged a map of the facility and the surrounding area and locations of nearby police stations. They planned what materials to bring to the attack, including firearms, medical kits, and fireworks. One Antifa cell member, for example, said in one group chat that they would be, quote, bringing a wagon to hold armor and rifles. Co-conspirator one told the group that they would use rifles to intimidate law enforcement, saying cops are not trained or equipped for more than one rifle, so it tends to make them back off, meaning more than one armed person. Some members of the Antifa cell staged at a house on the evening of the planned attack. They called it the Black Bloc. It's how they were dressed, the Black Bloc. They brought a total of 10 firearms, 4 of which were purchased by co-conspirator 1. Co-conspirator 1 used a firearm to shoot at the victim's offers was an AR platform rifle that had a functioning binary trigger. Paragraphs 1 through 9 are incorporated in each count of the indictment, and then it lists the different counts. So count 1, providing material support to terrorists. Count 2, attempted murder of officers and employees of the United States. Count 3 is attempted murder of officers and employees. So they're going to give a count for each officer that was out there, I think. Count 4, attempted murder of officers and employees. 5, discharging a firearm in relation in the furtherance of a crime. Same thing for count 6. Same thing for count 7. And then it's signed. This providing material support, right there, count 1, providing material support to terrorists. That is defined as let me see. I'm gonna look it up right here. It calls it, let's see, 239A-B1. 239A-B1. Any property, tangible or intangible, or service, including currency or monetary instruments or financial securities, lodging, training, expert advice or assistance, safe houses, false documentation or ID, communications equipment, facilities, weapons, explosives, maybe fireworks, and personnel. One or more individuals who may be including oneself, and transportation, except medicine or religious materials. So right there. So I could see how they could argue that fits because this guy provided weapons. He provided training. They had a house they met in. They provided communications or made communications possible with the group chats. So that's if they can succeed on this, charging them with providing material support to terrorists, it doesn't actually matter that domestic terrorist organization isn't really a thing as a legal definition in U.S. law. What matters is them utilizing the tools that law enforcement already has to combat terrorism, such as this law right here, 18 U.S.C. 2339. If they can do that, then the effect is basically the same. It's a distinction without a difference, kind of. And the media can cry about it all they want, and they can be correct in what they say about this not really being a thing. And they can be correct in their description of Antifa as being more of a concept or a political identity rather than an organization with structure and hierarchy. That can all be true. And it's true just like it was with the mafia. As Fisher King wrote here, the mafia denied its existence, and the FBI also denied that organized Italian crime as an outfit called the mafia existed, because mafia just means family. This was denied for decades, but everyone stopped denying it once some people were prosecuted and started to talk. And probably the same thing will happen with Antifa once the indictments get rolling. And now they have. Mafia isn't a term with a legal definition in U.S. law. But if Trump tomorrow issued an executive order designating the Italian mafia as a crime syndicate and empowered the government to go after it, the media would write papers saying mafia isn't really a thing. It's more an identity. There's no hierarchy or structure to it. And you can't just say that Italian families engaging in crime is some sort of organization. They would write the same type of articles and they would still be correct in as far as it goes. But it doesn't really matter. What matters is whether or not you can take down the organized crime, because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about organized crime and organized terrorism. So this case, we're going to track for that reason, USA versus Arnold, to see if that sticks. And also to see where the defendants in this case got their support, because that could help the Antifa organization take more shape. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Let's go to, let's see, I got that. Okay, I knocked out all those things. Let's see what's going on the Comey docket while we wait. See if they filed that motion yet. Nope. Don't see it. Okay, I'm gonna keep waiting. Okay, a few interesting filings have hit Comey's docket. There's new attorneys that have been added to his team, which are some notable people from Mueller special counsel and the Jack Smith special counsel, and people who led the public corruption unit out of the SDNY, some quote unquote heavy hitters, you might say. And then there's been a motion for a filter team to be added, which we already looked at. The U.S. prosecutors for the U.S. have filed a motion last night or this morning urging the judge to expedite a decision in that. And that's an interesting filing. And then also Comey just responded to that filing. Plus, we have the big motion to dismiss for selective and vindictive prosecution. So what I would like to do is I'm going to end episode 348 here, and then episode 349 will be devoted just to everything filed on the Comey docket within the past 24 or so hours, and that's what it'll be. And I'll get to that as soon as we have the major filing in it. So that'll be it for this episode. Visit my link tree for all of my links. You'll find a description you'll find the link in the description of the show or in my profile. And if you're not following me on YouTube, please do give me a like over there. Give me a comment. Really helps me out. Appreciate you guys. I'll see y'all in episode 349, which will probably come out within 24 hours of this one. So, all right, take it easy. See ya.